Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, I'm Miriam Dow, wife, mom of four, real estate investor, and entrepreneur. Happy Sunday. So today's video, we're going to be discussing renting versus buying. Which one is best for you? Let's get right. Having been a homeowner for almost 7 years now, I now have a lot of insight. And there's a lot of things that I probably would have did differently. As you know, I bought my primary residence back in 2017. We were a family of four back then, so I had 2 children. There were some factors that went into buying the house. Now, depending on where you are in your life, whether you want to be mobile, whether you're stable, whether you have a stable income, whether you have a stable job, those are what determines renting versus buying. All right, let's start with renting. So with renting, I'm just going to discuss some of the pros of renting. Less money to get involved. You just have to come up with your down payment, first month rent, deposit, and you get into your home. You don't have to worry about any maintenance issues. So anytime something goes wrong, you call up your super, your property management company, and they come and take care of that issue for you. If you are mobile and you want to be able to travel and stuff like this, and you get a job opportunity out of the country, out of the state, you can, terminate that lease. There might be some fees, but that's how easy it is to make a phone call, terminate the lease, probably pay at the end of your lease. You can terminate that and move to another place. Easier to relocate. You can literally get up and go. If you're like still young and you want to be able to move around, mobility, live in different states, get different, experiences while you're still young, or maybe have a small family, then renting is probably the best way to go for you. Now let's discuss the cons of renting. Renting, you can't control your rent. So at the end of your lease, if you decide that you want to stay there, most likely your rent's going to go up. So you have no control over your rent. And the biggest thing that I see is there's no tax write-off. At the end of the year, you get no tax write-off. As an investor, if you're doing rental arbitrage, you don't get any tax write-offs. All of those benefits goes towards the homeowner. Now let's discuss the pros of homeownership. Buying, have a little bit more stability. So this is probably best for families. When we bought our home, we were a family of 4, so we wanted to be stable. We didn't think about moving or anything like that. Like, I knew I was gonna be in this house for a minimum of 5 years, and here we are going on 7 years. In the next 2 months will be 7 years since we bought this house. We have ownership, we have stability, we have tax write-off, we get to leverage our home equity. One of the biggest benefits is compound appreciation. Every year that this home has went on as us being homeowners, we are getting appreciation. So now, having been a homeowner for 7 years, I can tell you that we have about $274,000 in equity. And this is before we do some updates to the home. So in my previous video, I let you know that we are actually gonna be renovating our basement, and we're actually gonna be renovating our kitchen. Once those renovations are complete, I'm pretty sure it's probably gonna bump it up a few $1,000s, getting us closer to about $300,000 in equity in our home. And every year that goes by, the home is appreciating. The amount that we own on the home is decreasing. I love that the mortgage is fixed. Unlike renting your home, where at the end of each lease, you don't know what your new rent is going to be. It's probably going to go up $100, $50. Our mortgage is fixed. So it's been the same amount since we purchased our home almost 7 years ago. It did go up a little bit because of our tax increase. About a few months after buying the house, our taxes increased, so they need to have that money in escrow, enough money in escrow. But it was less than $100 difference. And then once we funded that escrow account to where it needed to be, then that amount came back down, but then it increased only about $10 from what the previous initial mortgage payment was. Fast forward 7 years and we still have that fixed mortgage payment and that great interest rate, because as we know, 2017 interest rates are nothing like these 2024 interest rates. Maintenance. This is a big thing for us, because me and my husband were not handyman kind of people. We were the type to just call a handyman anytime we had any kind of issues. Just to give you some insight, when we first bought our property, we took about 2 weeks. I was getting the floors refinished. I did some painting. I knocked down some walls, painted my kitchen cabinet. So I did a few projects. First night we moved into our home, we started seeing some water issues in the basement with the plumbing. So I found out that the painter that I hired to paint our home before we actually physically moved in, she was rinsing the paintbrushes in the sink upstairs in the kitchen. That paint that she was rinsing off of the paintbrushes later on dried into the plumbing. And the first night that we moved into this house, we had a water issue. And I'm like, oh my God, this is what homeownership really is. We couldn't call the super. We didn't have no property manager to call. We had to figure it out for ourselves. The first day that we bought the house, it was a snowstorm. So we was out there shoveling the snow. We never had to deal with that when we were renting in New York City. The super would do that. they would take care of that. Now we out here shoveling snow, moving the cars out the way. So that was our very first taste of home ownership. I still wouldn't trade it for anything, but that just goes like any maintenance issues, that is your responsibility. Another con might be that you have to come up with a big down payment, a large lump sum. So your down payment, whether you want to avoid PMI, which is property mortgage insurance, you want to make a 20% down payment. If you want to take advantage of your first time buying a home, that kind of program, you could put down 3.5% down. So either way, it's a large lump sum of money, and then that's not including closing costs as well. So anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 is what you're going to come to the closing table with, including the closing costs. So it could be a large lump sum of money, and that has nothing to do with furnishing the home. In circumstances, it might be, some people might be renting, like if you're single and you're renting your home, if you do the numbers, it might be less expensive to actually buy. If you are considering house hacking. Now, I have to tell you, there was a lot of things that I did not that I underestimated when purchasing our home. Like when we purchased our home, I made sure to get a copy of the seller's like 3 months worth of utility bills. So I wanted to see what their light bill looked like, what their water bill looked like. And that wasn't really nothing. I was scared of the water bill because we didn't have a water bill coming from New York City, but come to find out, that's like less than $50 some months, it's always going to be less than 100. And then the light bill it wasn't too much of a difference than what we were paying in New York City. But what I underestimated was, now that I live in New Jersey and I work in New York, both me and my husband work in New York, now we're paying double state taxes. So we're paying taxes for the state that we work in, and now we're paying taxes for the state that we live in. So that was something I underestimated. And a big bill, which is a bill that I underestimated, was our Easy Pass cost. Now we're commuted into the city almost 7 days a week. Now, even though I was taking the bus, my husband was driving into the city. That Easy Pass bill of $15 on a daily, that is about $105 a week that we did not account for. So that was definitely like a bill. That's like $400 a month, more than our light bill, more than our water bill. This was a bill more than our cable bill, more than our phone bills, that I underestimated. So that's definitely something that you want to think about if you're going to be working in a different state, separate from the state that you're working in. For us, like, we're in the East Coast, so if you're planning on buying a house in Pennsylvania, like a lot of people I know bought houses in the Poconos, they still drive to the city to work. If you're buying a house in Connecticut, if you're buying a house in New Jersey, but you still want to take advantage of working in New York where you have higher income, then just put that in. Different instances where renting might be better than buying. For instance, when we bought this house, we had a neighbor. Her house was adjacent to ours. She was very elderly. Her husband passed away. The neighbors would, come out and bring her trash to the curb for her. They'll bring her back in. I remember my husband shoveling her snow for her sometimes, just because she was very old. She lived alone in this 3-bedroom house. So sometimes it can get overwhelming. It takes a lot to maintain the home, the maintenance, if you have any leaks, plumbing, HVAC, you gotta have a company come out and flush it out, change the filters, do all that stuff on your heating system that you have in your home, like your boiler and stuff like that. On an annual basis, these things cost money. Eventually, she did sell our home and she went to rent. So when you're getting older, you think it's better to rent your home, especially if you're living alone, just because it comes with a lot of responsibilities. Every year your tax is going up. I have a neighbor who bought his house more than 30 years ago. So his kids are my age and been living here the whole time. Even for someone like him who paid off his house, these taxes are going up every year. So you still have that tax payment, that bill that you have to pay every year. So you got to think about that. You got to weigh your pros and your cons. Now, for the people who are sending me DMs and messages asking me, should I buy now? Yes. If you want to buy a house, I tell you to buy now. I'm telling my friends this, I'm telling anyone who's asking me this, buy your house now. Why? The interest rates are still high. There's going to be less competition. A lot of people can no longer afford the house that they want or desire. They are no longer able to even look at houses in those price ranges because of the interest rate. So if you can afford to buy a house now, I'm filming this video January of 2024, then buy a house, because spring is around the corner. Once it starts to get pretty and sunny and the interest rates probably get knocked down 1 or 2 points, you're going to have these bidding wars. 30 bids, 40 bids, 50 bids. My sister was bidding on a house with a FHA loan and there was like 52 other bids. They wasn't even looking at the people that came with FHA loans. Now for my viewers, I'm trying to get you guys into, owning a house with a minimum amount of down payment. So that means you're gonna come in with a FHA loan with 3.5% down. A seller's view, that's probably not going to be the most interesting product. I'm going to look at the people first that's offering cash. If I don't have any cash buyers, then I'm going to look at the conventional loans. Why? Because FHA loan, this is a government loan, and it comes with a lot of strings attached. Their inspections are rigorous. It's just very tedious compared to a conventional loan. I told you when I bought my house cash, my first purchase was a primary residence that I bought with an FHA loan. My second purchase was an investment property that I bought cash. I was expected to go up in there, you know, I had my coffee, to be signing papers for 2 hours. It took me all of 10-15 minutes to sign papers. And the link to that video is right here. Because when you're buying a house cash, you don't have all these things attached, like you're signing a life away when you're buying a house with a mortgage. So just keep that in mind. Why do you think a lot of people, when they buy their first home, they're buying something that's, you know, not that desirable, but it's in a nice area, something kind of like a fixer-upper. You fix it as you live in it. Like the home that we bought is old. This home was built in 1950, and it's on a smaller side, but it is on a really big lot. And I knew that it had potential because I can extend the home. I could do an addition. I could build it out. I can add a family room. I can add a master suite. I can do all this other stuff. But you know, the people who buy their second homes, why do you think their houses are drastically nicer? Like if we were to sell this house today and go buy our second home, we're gonna be walking away with about $300,000 that we can go ahead and put into our second home. Now I don't need an FHA loan because the equity appreciation that was building up in this house within the past 7 years of me living in it, fixing it, bringing the value up, I'm now using that equity to my advantage, and I'm taking that and I'm investing in another property. Now this second property is going to be drastically nicer. It's going to be newer because I can afford it, because I can go ahead and put the 20% down on the house, or I can go ahead, you know, put $100,000 down on the house. Things like that are not feasible when you're your first time home buyer. But as your second time home buyer, you can use that equity and go ahead and invest in a nicer house. Even better, you could use that equity and go ahead and invest in a business. If you're a real estate investor like me, you could take $100,000 equity out of your home and you can go ahead and that could be a down payment for 2-3 other properties. So investment properties that are now making you money. After buying my home, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and I realized that I'm sitting here talking about, oh, I bought a house as an asset. No, I bought a liability because we were paying money. We had these easy pass costs. We had these maintenance costs. We had these plumbing issues. We had a water issue in our basement. We had this mortgage. And I want to tell you, first 10 to 15 years of your mortgage, you are paying pennies towards your principal. Take a look at that mortgage payment. And to give you an example, on a mortgage of, I was watching something the other day, a doctor who makes $39,000 a year. He bought a $2 million house. His mortgage is, I believe, $12,000 a month. And out of that $12,000, $195 is going towards his principal. They are robbing us out here. The majority of the first 10 to 15 years of your mortgage payments are going towards interest because the bank, this is like you renting the bank's home. So yeah, you say, I'm a homeowner. Are you really? Because don't make that tax payment and they will come and take this house away from you. It's like you gotta weigh your pros and cons. So if you can buy a house that you can afford and actually, you know, make a lot of payments towards the principal, that's even better because now you're gonna speed up that date of you actually owning the home. Instead of 30 years, you could pay off your home in 25 years. Instead of 25 years, you could pay it off in 20 years. And that's by making an extra mortgage payment every 3 months if you can, making an extra mortgage payment every year if you can. Just one extra mortgage payment alone every year is going to shave off, I think, about 6 to 7 years off of that 30-year mortgage. They are robbing us. Now, these are realities that I didn't know until I actually bought the home and started looking at the paperwork and looking at my mortgage payment. Because, you know, it's overwhelming. It's a lot of things you're doing. You have got the inspector coming in. You don't really know what you're looking at. It's a new neighborhood. You see new faces, new cultures. You are excited. And then you start making that mortgage payment and you're like, hold up. This is how much I'm paying towards principal. This is how much is going towards interest. They are robbing me out here. How is this legal? So keep that into mind. There's a lot of pros towards buying a home. Most of the world's millionaires have become wealthy off of real estate. they use the equity. This is how millionaires are born. Entrepreneurs are born. They use the equity to go and invest in other rental investment properties, or they use the equity to go and invest in businesses. But you need to read the fine line, read the paperwork, get a lawyer, take a look at all that paperwork, because there's a lot of cons that come towards buying the house. Now, if I can do it over again, I would house hack. I've said that in plenty of videos. I would house hack, because right now, as of today, even though I have 4 other investment properties, this house that I'm living in is still to this day a liability, because it's not bringing any money in. It's only taking from me and my husband's pocket. Those are some of the pros and cons of renting versus buying. Tell me in the comment section down below, what would you do? Now, if I was to actually go ahead and rent this home out, I don't know if I would actually buy a house to live in, because I'm at a point in my life where I want my kids to travel. I want us to travel the world. I had the luxury of traveling the world at a young age, and I want to give my kids that luxury as well. And I don't want to be tied down to paying mortgage payments. So when I get to the point where I'm renting out this liability of mine and turn this liability into an asset, I don't know if I'll buy a house to just live in, especially not in the US. I'll probably buy a house out of the country where houses are more feasible and there's less interest rates. But I don't know if I'll buy a house in the US to live in. I think I might be taking Grant Cardone up on his advice and renting. Tell me what you think about that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.